Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Safer Summer Series Community Workshop. My name is Elizabeth Herrera, and I work with the State Water Board. We are so pleased that you are with us tonight. Thank you for joining us. I would like to thank the Water Board staff that have helped put this workshop together and who are also on the line this evening to help answer any questions we may have throughout the evening. This workshop is being presented in both English and Spanish. If you would like to access the Spanish interpretation and are attending via Zoom, please select the interpretation icon at the bottom of your screen and select Spanish, and then select Mute Original Audio.
Okay, este taller se presenta en inglés y en español, y si desea escuchar a la interpretación del español y está asistiendo a través de Zoom, oprima el icono interpretación y luego español en la parte inferior de la pantalla. También seleccione Mute Original Audio.
And if you are having any technical or language access issues, please email this email address, safer@waterboards.ca.gov. Again, that's safer@waterboards.ca.gov. Or post in the chat the problem you are having. Please include the best way of getting a hold of you, and someone will reach out to you and help you resolve the issue. This workshop is part of the Safer Summer Series, which is a series of virtual events happening through August of this year, explaining how the Safer Drinking Water Program can help your community and how you can get involved. You also have a chance to share your thoughts, concerns, and questions with Water Board staff. Our next event will be a tribal drinking water workshop for Northern California on June 17th, which is this Thursday. For more information about future events, visit our website at waterboards.ca.gov/safer. And all these emails and web addresses will be dropped in the chat for your reference also, so you can find them there. So the mission of the Water Boards. The mission statement of the Water Boards is to preserve, enhance, and restore the quality of California's drinking water for the protection of the environment, public health, and all beneficial uses, and to ensure proper water resource allocation and efficient use for the benefit of present and future generations. Our work here today supports the well-being of the state as we work together to provide clean, safe, and affordable water to all Californians. So we welcome your participation during today's workshop. That makes the best workshops when y'all participate. If you are using the Zoom app and want to comment or ask a question, you can either post your question or comment in the chat or raise your hand using the raise hand feature under the reactions icon. If you're calling in, you can press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute yourself. You're welcome to post questions in the chat throughout the presentation, and we will respond during the question and answer period. Please be aware that we are recording this workshop, and the recorded video will be posted on the SAFER website in the near future. And as you know, we are interpreting this workshop in Spanish. As a result, the presenters will be speaking slowly to best support the interpretation process.
Como recordatorio, este taller se presenta en inglés y en español, y si desea escuchar a la interpretación y está asistiendo a través de Zoom, seleccione el icono de interpretación en la parte inferior de la pantalla y seleccione español y también Mute Original Audio.
Again, if you need any technical or language services assistance, email us. And that email is in the chat at safer@waterboards.ca.gov. Please include a description of your problem and maybe a phone number or best way to get a hold of you, and we will help resolve it. Now, a brief overview of what we're going to be talking about today. During the next hour and a half, we will be providing an overview of the SAFER program, hear from a community member who has been working with the Water Boards and the SAFER program for the last couple of years, discuss ways to get involved with the SAFER program and an access assistance for your community. We'll also have time to hear from you and answer any questions you may have. So in order to get an idea of who's here today, I'd like to start with a short poll. We will be using an app called PolyEverything or PolyV. This app is often used by government agencies and water board meetings. So we're going to take some time today to help you understand how to use this app. There are two ways to participate using PolyV. You can access PolyV either via the internet or via text. If you're going to use the internet, you open a browser window like Google Chrome or Safari, type into the web browser polyv.com/safer2019. And again, that address is in the chat for your reference. You press enter, and then PolyV will open a window asking for you to enter a screen name. Now you can enter a screen name, but it's not required. Then just press continue and you're all set to start taking the polls. If you'd like to participate on your phone, you can participate via text. Text the phrase SAFER2019, no spaces, to the phone number 22333. I know it's only 5 digits, but it works, trust me. Again, text the phrase SAFER2019 to the phone number 22333. You will be sent a confirmation text confirming that you are participating in the SAFER 2019 polls. And you're all set to participate. You don't have to follow the link on the confirmation. That's just telling you you're ready to go. Now for each poll question, text your answer and it'll show up on the poll. We'll be using this polling system 2 to 3 times throughout the evening in order just to have a better chance of hearing from you. If you're having any problems with it, put a comment in the chat. You can email us and we'll help you get you sorted. Okay, is everybody registered? Okay, let's start our first poll just to get you warmed up. I know it's after 5, but what is your favorite morning drink? All right, I see coffee, medium roast. I'm a dark roast gal. Anybody else? What's your favorite morning drink? Oh, Ethiopian blend. Like it. Some tea, green roast. Excellent. Oh, OJ, a health nut in the group. Well, thanks, you guys. And coffee, as you'll see, it's the largest word on there. That means we've got the most responses that said coffee is your favorite morning drink. That's kind of how that one works. All right, shall we move on to our next question? Another warm-up question. In one word, how are you feeling today? Let's see, I think I have this on here too. Sleepy, tired. It's only Tuesday. Good. Zoomed, maybe zoomed out. I know there's a lot of Zoom happening. Any other responses out there? How you feeling today? Oh, good. Good, we have a couple more than one good. That's excellent. All right, let's go on to, we have a couple more questions for you guys. Where are you calling from today? We'd really like to hear from you. And this one, you can't text the answer, but you can click on it if you're on a browser. And if you'd like to post your answer in the chat, if you're on PolyV with your phone, we'd love to hear from you. It's so awesome. We got some SoCal in the house, some Northern California. Excellent. That's great. Thanks, guys. Okay. Our next question is, who are you representing today? And you select one of these answers by choosing a letter. Are you with a tribe? Are you with a community organization, local government agency, state or federal government, your community, yourself, a water system, or other? If somebody's representing other, it'd be fun to hear from you in the chat who you're representing, like a non-government organization. Awesome. So you can see almost half our folks are from government agencies. We have some community organizations. Awesome. That's terrific. Thank you, guys. It's really great to know who's here, who we're representing. Okay, only one more question in this first round of PolyVs, but we'll come back to it. What do you hope to get out of today's workshop? And this is really important to us because we really want to hear from you about what's important to you to get out of this workshop. Go ahead again, select a letter that best represents what you're hoping to get out of today's workshop.
And Elizabeth, I'm just going to chime in to say we have Jose Mauro in the chat. He said he was representing himself.
Thank you, Jose. I was too busy watching the polls and I missed it. Thank you. All right, so far folks are here to learn about SAFER. Awesome, because that's what we're talking about today. Drinking water. All right, looks like the majority of folks are here to learn about the SAFER program. It's good because we've got a lot to tell you. We'll give that just another minute. Well, not a full minute, but another couple seconds. Thanks you guys for participating. I hope that everybody kind of figured that out. Again, if you're having any problems with PolyV, just email us or put it in the chat and we'd be glad to help you get it sorted out because we're going to do this again in a little bit. So now we're going to move on to our presentation for today's workshop. I am pleased to introduce my colleague, Itzel Vasquez Rodriguez. Itzel.
Yay, thanks Elizabeth, and thanks everyone for filling out the PolyV. I know it can seem really daunting, but it gives us some cool visuals to be able to see who's in the room. And it's something I've seen at a lot of Zoom meetings lately, so I'm glad that we're practicing it here too. So as Elizabeth said, my name is Itzel Vasquez Rodriguez. I'm with the State Water Board. My pronouns are she and her. And I'm going to talk to you all today about the SAFER program. So I'm going to start us off just with a glimpse of drinking water issues in California, and then we'll talk about the SAFER program. So if during my speech or presentation today, if y'all want to put questions in the chat or raise your hand, you're more than welcome to, and we'll be sure to get to your question during our Q&A sections. Okay, so to back us up a little bit, right? What are we talking about here today? Talking about water. So when you all turn on a faucet and water comes out, that water comes from a water system or a well of some kind. And for the most part, the vast majority of water systems that serve 15 or more connections in California are serving safe drinking water, which means that the water that comes out of that faucet most of the time is safe to drink. However, there are some water systems and private wells that are not serving safe drinking water. The majority of systems and areas that are not serving safe drinking water are in communities that are small, rural, low income, and or communities of color. And these communities may not have a big enough system or a big enough customer base to afford the costs of providing safe, affordable, and reliable drinking water. These communities might not also have the capacity to serve safe, affordable, and reliable drinking water. Like for instance, a system might not have enough paid staff or enough full-time staff to run a system, or the staff may not have the right training to be able to run that system with reliable drinking water. So how do we know this? How do we know that there are some systems out there that are not serving safe drinking water, and there are some systems out there that are? So for that, we're going to look at a map. And you all, if you're joining on Zoom today, you should be able to see this map on the slide posted here. And essentially, this is a map of California that shows where there are water systems that are not meeting safe drinking water standards as of April 12th of this year. So those black triangles and red dots on this map of California represent the water systems with drinking water violations. Those are systems that are not serving safe drinking water. And for those of you who might not be able to see this map on the screen, I'll just tell you verbally, these clusters of systems that are not serving safe drinking water are across the state. So there's a cluster, what looks like in the North Central Valley. There's another cluster in the Southern Central Valley, in what looks like Kern County. There's a cluster of systems in the Central Coast, as well as in what looks like the Inland Empire and the San Diego border region. So those clusters are all over the state. And essentially, what this map tries to show is that there are currently over 1 million Californians without safe and affordable drinking water in their home. And this has been an issue for years. So how did this happen? Well, there are thousands of water systems and wells in California, and they are regulated differently. So here I have a photo of a couple different water systems, or like ways that people get water to their faucet. So the first type of water system I'm going to talk about today is the public water system. And that is a water system that serves 15 or more connections. And there are about 7,000 public water systems in California. And of those 7,000, there are about 300 water systems that do not meet drinking water health standards. And those systems, the ones that don't meet the standards, are on that map that we just saw with the red dots and the black triangles. So examples of public water systems might be things like schools, or big urban water systems like the Metropolitan Water District, which services a lot of Southern California. It might be things like city water districts or businesses that provide their own water. And public water systems are regulated by the State Water Board. Okay, the next water system that I'm going to be talking about are domestic wells and state smalls. So those are separate from the public water systems that I just talked about. And domestic wells and state smalls are not included in that map that I just showed with the red dots and the black triangles. Domestic wells and state smalls are not on that map. And domestic wells and state smalls can serve up to 14 connections, so they tend to be smaller. So for example, this picture on your screen, the top left corner, it's got like a tree and a little house. And in the back, you might see a little blip, but that is a well. So like, for example, if your house has a well in the backyard that gets water from underground, or if you're part of a mobile home park and the mobile home park has 10 families and you all get water from a well, you're probably serviced by a domestic well or a state small. And in California, there are about 350,000 domestic wells and state smalls. And the challenge with both domestic wells and state smalls is that they are not regulated by the state or by the federal government, which means that they're not required to test or report water quality. So we don't necessarily know if domestic wells and state smalls are serving safe drinking water. And then the last type of system that I will talk about today are tribal water systems. So there's a photo at the top right hand side of your screen, if you're on Zoom and seeing it, and it has a number of flags. And those flags represent just a few of the many tribal nations that exist in what is now known as California. And for tribal water systems, they are not regulated by the State Water Board, and they're federally regulated by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, US EPA. And there are 128 federally regulated tribal water systems in California. So to summarize, there are over 7,000 public water systems. There are about 350,000 domestic wells and state smalls, and there are over 100 tribal water systems. So that's a huge amount of water systems, and the state does not regulate all of them. So this can sometimes lead to problems. So we have communities throughout California who are not able to drink their tap water. They can't use their tap water to take a shower. They might have to haul in water or bottled water. They might be paying huge fees to pay for water that they can't even use because it's not safe to use. Their water might be making them sick in some communities in California. And we even have communities here in the state that sometimes run out of water, and drought makes those issues worse. So Now, thanks to the Community Water Center, which is a nonprofit focused on water justice in California, we're going to be playing 2 videos that kind of give a better idea of some people's realities when it comes to water. So we're going to start with a first video on YouTube, and then we will switch to another video. And Jessica, it looks like the audio is not on the video quite yet. Bear with us, everyone. Some technical difficulties. Wouldn't be a Zoom meeting without it, right? So let's see, as Jessica is pulling that video back up.
Most small rural communities in the San Joaquin Valley get their water from under the ground. This groundwater is stored in aquifers. Since groundwater has historically been a clean source of water, many communities pump groundwater to the surface and send it directly to houses with only very minimal treatment. Groundwater should be a safe place to keep water clean, but some pollutants can seep deep into the ground, contaminating people's wells. Some groundwater contamination occurs naturally, but much of the drinking water contamination in the San Joaquin Valley comes from the massive amount of manure and liquid waste generated from the giant dairy facilities in the region, the excess fertilizer applied to crops, and harmful pesticide residues. Regardless of the source, these man-made and naturally occurring contaminants seep deep into the groundwater and make the water unsafe to drink. In drought years, and with the introduction of more permanent and water-demanding crops, this water contamination can worsen, and people can run out of water entirely. Thousands of domestic wells can run dry as new, deeper agricultural wells pumping around the clock lower the water table, which is also no longer being replenished by normal rain and surface water irrigation. With drought expected to become increasingly common in the West due to climate change, we'll continue to see water quality and supply challenges long into the future if we do not act now. Drought has been a hot topic recently, but drinking water contamination has been a problem for decades. And the health and economic costs of California's drinking water crisis hit communities hard. The drinking water crisis has multiple causes that have come together after decades of neglect to create one toxic cocktail that no one should have to drink if they have water at all. Unsafe tap water can be found in nearly every county in California, but more than half of the communities with unsafe water are found in the San Joaquin Valley alone. This crisis disproportionately impacts low-income Latino farm workers and their families.
All right, so that was our first video, and now we're going to move on to a second video to hear directly from some community members who are facing some of these issues. Again, shout out to the Community Water Center for letting us show these.
Most small rural communities in the San Joaquin Valley get their water from under the ground. This groundwater is stored in aquifers. Since groundwater has historically been a clean source of water, many communities pump groundwater to the surface.
Se secó el pozo y no ya, desde entonces he estado batallando que no hemos tenido agua.
Nuestra agua estaba muy contaminada y sigue con nitratos.
Se secó el pozo y no ya, desde entonces he estado batallando que no hemos tenido agua.
When we needed to use the toilet, I had to bring a bucket of water from outside the house.
El agua que está saliendo de aquí está muy contaminada a raíz de que El vecino de nosotros es en lechería.
Y siempre estábamos enfermos, nuestros niños también.
El valor de la casa pues baja bastante de valor. Nadie va a querer comprar una casa sin tener ningún beneficio con agua.
About 10% of our income, monthly income, goes to buy water bottle.
They go to school, and then I hear comments, people think that because you don't have water, you don't take showers.
And you kind of feel embarrassed. You turn on the faucet and the water starts coming out brown.
We don't want our family to get sick. Everybody, no matter where you live or where you're from in the Central Valley or anywhere in the state, should be able to drink water from the tap without being afraid to get sick. What are we gonna leave to our families, to our grandchildren? I'm worried that they not only that they're gonna have contaminated water, but they're not gonna have water at all if we don't take care of our groundwater.
All right, thank you, Jessica, for showing those videos. We're going to switch our screen back to the PowerPoint, and I'll chat for about another 3 minutes. And then I see we did have some questions in the chat, so we'll get to those in about 3 minutes or so. So we just saw these two videos that kind of detail some of the realities that people are facing when it comes to drinking water in California. And so, we've kind of explained at this point some of the issues and some of the realities of drinking water in California. So now I'm going to move on to talking about the SAFER program. So this is where the SAFER program comes in. SAFER stands for the Safe and Affordable Fund for Equity and Resilience program, and it came as a result of years of advocacy. SAFER is a continuation of the Human Right to Water resolution, which was passed back in 2014. And the SAFER drinking water program was formally created after California passed Senate Bill 200 in 2019. And the program is run by the California State Water Board. And the SAFER drinking water program uses a combination of regulatory, funding, and public engagement strategies to help struggling water systems provide safe and affordable drinking water. So the SAFER program was designed to make sure that Californians who do not have safe and affordable drinking water can get safe and affordable drinking water as quickly as possible, and that the water systems that are serving them can establish sustainable solutions to meet drinking water needs. So there are a number of tools that the SAFER program uses. There are 6 that I'm going to talk about today, and their icons are on the screen if you have the PowerPoint, but I will talk us through them. So there are 6 that I'll be covering today. So the first tool that the SAFER program uses is the annual drinking water needs assessment, which basically is an annual list and map of systems that informs the broader activities of the SAFER program. It helps us track at-risk systems so we can support them before they fail, and it prioritizes funding decisions for part of the SAFER fund. The next tool I'll talk about is our comprehensive water system support. So we meet the water system where it is at. And unlike other funding programs where recipients have to reach out and apply, our staff uses available data to reach out to failing or at-risk water systems to help them get on track for a long-term solution. So some examples of that: we might provide technical assistance to support the process or the training or the development of managerial staff. We can also provide assistance with community outreach and awareness and education. So that's comprehensive water system support. Another tool that the SAFER program uses is community outreach and engagement. So in order to identify what is the best long-term solution for a community, the community needs to be involved throughout the process. So as our staff work directly with the water system, we also make sure that the local community is informed about opportunities to learn more and engage in the drinking water solutions that are being discussed in their community. The next tool that the SAFER program uses is funding, right? It's the SAFER, the F stands for funding. And there's a number of funding sources that we can tap into and that we can use to fund some of the examples that I mentioned, right? So we can also provide assistance to water systems in navigating the funding process, the funding application process as well. So for example, the SAFER program may be able to fund bottled water delivery or emergency drinking water or point of use filters or construction processes, including the planning and design phase of a construction process. The SAFER program can also provide grants and loans. And then the next tool that the SAFER program uses is regulatory authorities. So the water boards also have regulatory authorities that help accelerate or quicken drinking water solutions. So examples of these authorities are consolidations, which is where two or more water systems are joined either physically or managerially. And the other regulatory authority we use is the appointment of administrators. So those are entities that can be appointed to temporarily manage a water system until the water system is able to manage itself sustainably. And then the last tool that I'll talk about for the SAFER program is the SAFER Advisory Group. So the advisory group helps give feedback and advice on the SAFER Fund Expenditure Plan and also helps guide how funding is prioritized annually through that process. And the SAFER Advisory Group also gives us feedback on other aspects of the SAFER program. Okay, so before we move on to our next PolyV, I saw we had a couple of questions in the chat. So Elizabeth, if you want to help us moderate that section, you can go ahead and try and answer those.
I do want to help moderate that, but I don't know that I'll be able to answer them all. But let's look through. I really appreciate you guys posting these things in the chat, these questions. The first question was about the map and the expanding criteria. I'm trying to scroll back to that. Expanded criteria meet current versus current criteria. And I think Michelle posted something in there. And Bruce, did that answer your question?
Yes.
Awesome. That's what I like to hear. And then Jose, I know that Yvette responded to your question about what other things can you use to inform yourself about water in your community. I think those are excellent resources she sent you. If you want to stay on at 7:30, we're going to have some staff on the call. We'd love to chat with you and maybe get some ideas, some other ideas for you. And thanks, Yvette, for responding to that. I appreciate it. Takes a village. And we have some other, okay. E. Volsky asked the question, how do you choose who represents a community? I'm wondering if we might need some clarification. Can you re-ask that question or rephrase that question? What are you asking? We'd love to hear from you and see how we can answer that.
And I saw that question was from E. Wolski, but I saw it pop up in the chat. Oh, here we go.
He says, we are not sure how our community rep got chosen. Community rep for...
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I saw that you tried to unmute me. No, we were just curious. I live in one of the SAFER neighborhoods, and we weren't really sure how the person that's listed as the community rep got chosen, because there's not an organized community. So I was just curious how you pick these people that represent these various SAFER communities.
That's a really good question. Do any of the water board staff want to address that question?
I can attempt to address it. I mean, we typically, I'll turn my camera on. We typically work with, at least, maybe I should introduce myself, Michelle Frederick, and I am with the Division of Drinking Water. And we typically work directly with public water systems. Usually they have a board or a formal organizational structure. Sometimes they don't, and then we have to sort of work with who's ever sort of operating the system, but that's typically what we do. But certainly if there's other community members, we try and integrate them on any discussions.
What if you had an area of private wells where it wasn't like an organized system?
If we have an area of private wells, we usually reach out to those private wells individually in most of the ones that I've been involved with. So we sort of send letters house to house. But then sometimes more, a certain person will come out and be more interested than others and sort of take that role. But usually we try and reach out house to house.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate that. And thanks for your question. Are there any other questions before we move on to a short PolyV? Because I know you guys love that. All right, I'm going to take silence as no more questions. All right, we're just going to ask 2 more PolyV questions for now. We'll come back to it again later. So get back, you don't have to re-log in. You can just go back to your text message you were using before or your web browser. And our first question is, we're refreshing what we've learned today. What does this map show? So just type in a response. What does this map show? Just seeing if you guys were listening while Itzel was talking. What does this map indicate? What are these red spots and black triangles? Wait, I think we stumped the crowd. There's no responses, Itzel. We might need a refresher course.
Oh no, I'm embarrassed.
Systems not in compliance providing safe drinking water. Areas of California with water systems that violate the MCLs. Awesome. Drinking water systems with unsafe water. Exactly. Okay, we had a couple people paying attention.
Especially up front. Yeah, so ding, 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 that map did show water systems in California that are out of compliance or not serving safe drinking water.
All right, our last PolyV for right now. Can you name one tool the SAFER program uses?
We are a nonprofit, and our mission is to be a home for the environmental movement.
Nice. Okay. So the icons are kind of help refresh your memory there.
Talk about what we do, but I hope everyone checks out the exhibition that we currently have, Sea Change, which is showcasing the work of some really amazing Bay Area artists. So since you all have been here and you know what we do, I think I'll talk about sort of why we do it. And there's a story I like to share.
Awesome.
One of our jury shows, and he came to visit me for a meeting. And
that's terrific. You guys are awesome. We have an awesome crowd, Itzel. Whoop, whoop. Thank you, guys. You hit it on the head. Okay, that's it for our PolyVs for now. But we will come back to this again later. So now I'm going to put you back in the capable hands of Itzel.
Thanks, Elizabeth. It sounds like there might be someone with some background noise, but it's gone now. Okay. So now we're going to talk about, well, now that we understand some of the SAFER basics, and you all did a great job with the PolyV questions, we're going to dive deeper into some of the important documents that you'll hear about related to SAFER.
There's a lot of power in that, I think.
And it sounds like there is someone who is not muted, but I'm not sure who.
I think it also, more importantly, gives us hope.
Okay, so if y'all can make sure to mute yourselves, that would be great.
I'm not seeing anyone is unmuted, so I'm actually not certain where the background noise is coming from.
Ah, okay. It's not on your computer screen, Jessica? If not, that's okay.
It, but I'm going to stop sharing briefly. If you want to continue, and I'll see. I'll confirm.
Okay, sounds good. All right, y'all. So we'll go without slides for now, but we're now going to dive deeper into some of the important documents that you'll hear about related to SAFER. The first of which is the SAFER Needs Assessment, which again was one of the SAFER tools that we mentioned earlier. And the Needs Assessment is an annual list and map of systems that informs broader activities of the SAFER program. And it essentially does three things. Number one, it identifies California water systems that are failing or at risk of failing to provide safe drinking water. So that falls under the risk assessment that you'll see on your screen. Number two, the needs assessment estimates how much it would cost to provide solutions for these systems and where the funding gaps are. So that falls under the cost assessment icon on your screen. And number three, this needs assessment looks at the level of affordability for some customers of water systems in what are deemed disadvantaged communities. So it tries to answer the question, are customers being charged high fees in order to get safe drinking water? And that's kind of the third icon. So we completed the first ever needs assessment this year, and it is posted online. And SAFER is also collecting and trying to manage data to identify needs and solutions for water systems in a transparent way. So missing data continues to be an issue, and we're working to close that gap. But I see Elizabeth just posted the link in the chat to the needs assessment if you're interested in learning more. Okay, the next important document, so to speak, of the SAFER program that I'm going to talk about today is the Fund Expenditure Plan. So this is the annual budget for part of SAFER, and it prioritizes SAFER program spending. So the plan is based on information that is developed in the needs assessment, which we just talked about. And then those are prioritized in our fund expenditure plan for a year. So our fund expenditure plan priorities and the plan itself is being released in August of this year. And it will go out for public comment. And it's one of the main documents that the Water Board considers. And it's one of those main documents that has room for the public to provide input. So I encourage you all to comment on it if you are able. And as a reminder, SAFER staff are proactive, right? So we go out to the failing and at-risk water systems using the data that we have. And we use the fund expenditure plan to prioritize which types of systems we should focus on for the year. So again, if you all have the opportunity, I encourage you to comment on the fund expenditure plan. It will be released in August, and you could submit a written comment, or you can attend the fund expenditure plan workshop in August and share your comments orally. And just some topics that are included in the fund expenditure plan are things like affordability thresholds, timelines, community engagement planning, goals and metrics, and even the advisory group. Those are all topics that are in the fund expenditure plan. Okay, and the last part of SAFER that I'm going to talk about is the advisory group. So on your screen, there's two pictures of our first meeting in 2020 and then our first meeting in 2021. So you'll see the difference there. One was in person and one was not. So the SAFER advisory group is a group of up to 19 volunteers who are not water board staff, and they provide the state water board with valuable advice and feedback on SAFER spending and policies. The advisory group is made up of representatives from tribes, water systems, communities, nonprofits, and technical assistance providers, to name a few. And we host virtual meetings in English and Spanish, and they are open to the public. And the group meets about 4 times a year. Okay, so those are kind of the 3 main parts of SAFER I wanted to be sure we dove a little bit deeper into. So now, you know, as you sit here and listen to me speak, I'm sure you're thinking, SAFER sounds amazing. How do I get involved? Well, lucky for you, that's what I'll be talking about for the next couple of minutes. So how does your community get involved? So there are 2 ways for water systems to be connected with the SAFER program. Number 1, if your water system is ready and able to apply for funding, you can do so through FAST. It's FAAST, and we'll post that link in the chat. So if you're a water system and you are ready to apply for funding and you think you might qualify for the SAFER program, you can already start that application. And even if you're not eligible for SAFER funding, there are other resources available that we can plug you into. And the applications are accepted year-round. So that's option number one, right? And what's different about that is that in addition to water systems applying themselves, we have this other option, which is, in my opinion, kind of what makes our SAFER program a little bit different. So our staff, like I mentioned, is proactive and uses available data and reaches out to failing or at-risk water systems to help them with the funding application and to get on track to a long-term solution. So if you're a water system, either you can apply right through that FAAST website, which I see Elizabeth put in the chat, or State Water Board staff will reach out to you. All right, well, let's break that down just a little bit further. Let's give some examples. So if you're interested in connecting with the SAFER program, there's a couple of different options. Number one, if you work for a water system and you know it qualifies for funding and you know it needs funding, you can apply through the Financial Assistance Application Submittal Tool, FAAST. And that link is in the chat. Number two, if you want to ask questions about your water system or your well, or if you want to see if your water system or well has been contacted by the SAFER program or by the State Water Board, you can reach out to the SAFER email, which is safer@waterboards.ca.gov, or you can call us and leave a voicemail at 916-445-5615. A number of staff monitor that email and phone number, so we'll be sure to get back to you. Again, that's if you have questions and you want to see if your system has been contacted by the SAFER program. And then a third option that I want to throw out for y'all is that let's say you're not sure about your water system. You might not know who your water system is. You may not know like what their status is with the State Water Board or the SAFER program. And if that's the case, what I encourage you all to do is to look up what water system you're on and see if it's out of compliance or if it's on that human right to water map with the red circles and black triangles that we showed earlier. So to do that, you can check out a couple of different websites. We've posted one on our PowerPoint and we'll post the link in the chat, but it's called the Exceedance/Compliance Status of Public Water Systems map. And on that map, you can type in a zip code, an address, or a city, and it will show which water system services that area, and it will tell you if it's in compliance or not. And from there, if you see that your system is out of compliance, you can then call or email us at that SAFER account, safer@waterboards.ca.gov, or at our number, 916-445-5615. If this sounds really complicated, if you're like me and maps make your head go crazy, if you're unsure, you can just call or email us and we'll help you out. Again, that email is safer@waterboards.ca.gov, and that number is 916-445-5615. So when in doubt, just reach out. And with that, I will go ahead and pass the mic to Elizabeth, who will help moderate our question and answer portion.
Thanks, Itzel. Before we move on to our community presenter, whom I'm really excited to hear from, no pressure, Mike, I want to take a minute and see if there are any questions or things that we need clarified before we move on. No, there was a question in the chat. Jose asked, are there safer communities or communities with severe water issues without reps or folks advocating for them? Does anybody from the water board want to address that issue for us? And while we have volunteers popping up, thanks, Michelle. If anybody else has a question, post it in the chat and we'll get to it.
Hi, yeah, I mean, I think there probably are communities, there are, as was noted, there's 350,000 domestic wells in California. Of those, the needs assessment estimated that somewhere between 60 and 80,000 may be in an aquifer that has either naturally occurring contaminants such as arsenic and uranium, or sort of man-made contaminants like that can be man-made, nitrate, other things like that. So yeah, I mean, we at SAFER are attempting to do a lot of outreach, but there are certainly areas of the state that, we're only so many people. There are certainly areas of the state that probably need additional assistance, and sort of the effort of the needs assessment is to prioritize those. And I will say that the needs assessment first came out this year. This is the first iteration of it. It will come out every year from now on, but it came out in April. And so we are now using that to prioritize our outreach. Hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate that. Now, I just want to remind folks that if you're calling in, you can ask questions too. Just press *9 on your phone keypad, and that'll show me it will raise your virtual hand here, and we'll know that you would have a question to pose. I'm just checking for hands here. So one of the questions I've been thinking about, and maybe someone from the water boards can help me, even though I am with the water boards, I'm still fairly new. If my water system is labeled out of compliance, but I don't think it should be, what can I do?
I think that's probably a question for me. So if it's labeled out of compliance and you don't think it should be, the first thing I would do is contact your water system and ask them whether or not that's true. You should also be able to look at your CCR, which is called your Consumer Confidence Report, and look at sort of the data that's provided there and see if maybe there is something that they're out of compliance for. There's also monitoring. One of the questions in the box earlier asked about expanded criteria. And so, historically, the Human Right to Water list was a list of water systems that had chemical violations, arsenic, uranium, those kind of chemicals. We recently expanded that to include bacteriological problems that may be coming on and off. We've also included that for sort of extensive monitoring and reporting violations, and also for some other sort of treatment technique violations. So if all of those seem like they're in compliance, certainly contact us, the needs assessment on their website, and we can put that in the chat. I think somebody already might have, but we can look at that water system specifically for you and sort of review it with you, whether you think it's out of compliance or whether you think it's really not at risk. So we're happy to discuss those with you.
Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate that. Don't go. Wait, Michelle, we might still need you because there's another question.
Okay.
You're not yet. Bruce, I see that you've raised your hand. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah, so what? So can you tell me, and maybe I just couldn't find it on the exceedance compliance map, what the date of that information is? Is that 2019, 2020? And it appeared when I was clicking on some of the red stars that the text box that popped up said the system was in compliance. And if I zoomed in, it looked like the red star was on top of a gray dot there that stood for compliance. So as there usually is with me, it's a multi-part question.
So I haven't seen the specific link that they're looking at, or that you're looking at, but I'll be happy to do that, Bruce. But we have a couple different places where we post this information. One is, and we'll put those in the chat before the night is done. One gives up-to-date sort of funding information that we update regularly and has a visualization of what's going on with each system. And then the one that you're looking at, I think, is probably the one with the stars. And that has, you have to sort of tab through and scroll down. And at the bottom, it'll say whether or not it's in compliance or not. That one is typically updated quarterly, but I would have to look at that. I know the, actually, they both used to be updated quarterly. I know the visualization with the funding is now updated quarterly, and I think I said monthly, but it's quarterly. So I will put both of those in there for you all. And then Bruce, if you have questions, feel free to chat me directly with the name of the water system you're looking at, and we'll figure it out.
Thank you very much.
Sure, my pleasure.
Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate that. I know we have a couple other questions in the chat. I'm going to ask some staff to respond via chat. And so we can hear from Mike, our community presenter. And then Rob and Ryan, if they're not able to satisfy your or get the answer you're looking for, stay on and we will come back around to you and we can talk more about that. But if water board staff can reply via chat, that would be amazing. So I'm ready to hear from Mike.
Hello.
I've been building up. He goes, I don't know if I'll be able to live up to your expectations. So
I like the question from Jose in the comments about how he can get more information about his community's water. Hopefully I will be able to maybe provide a little direction in that, because I think that's what I went through.
I think you're right. So let me just introduce you a little bit, Mike, so they know who you are a little bit, and then you can tell us more. This is Mike Bailey. He lives in Ramona for the last 32 years. Is that right?
That is right.
San Diego County. He says he's a software engineer, community volunteer, and a citizen water scientist.
You guys kept pushing me for a bio, so that was the best I could come up with.
I love it. Well, I had to Google that, and it's an actual thing. So I'm glad you're here, Mike, and thanks for being with us. It's all yours.
Thank you. Do you guys have my PowerPoint slides up there?
They're coming.
They're coming. Ready. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So a little bit about me. You already know I live in Ramona, which is a little city outside of San Diego. And I've lived in this house for 32 years. And we have a well. We're not on city water. And as soon as we get a slide here, I'll talk a little bit about my community. There we go. So this is a kind of an overview of Ramona. Like I said, it's just outside of San Diego County, or it's in San Diego County, just outside of the big city. And we live in kind of a unique area. I'm sure it's not unique to the state. I'm sure a lot of people have this similar thing. We have a municipal water supply within Ramona. And what you're seeing here is kind of an overview map that provides not only sewer service, but water service. And some of the houses have water service, some of them have sewer service, some of them have both. Some of them are on a well, some are on municipal water, some are on both. Our house is on sewer, but not on city water. And go ahead and go to the next slide. I've always kind of been interested in water. It probably comes from having aquariums when I was younger. And so we'd always kind of tested our well water, and we always knew that there was a little bit of nitrate in our water when we first moved in 32 years ago. And because we had been testing the water and keeping track of it, we started noticing some very odd things. In the last, I would say probably 10 years, we really started seeing our water quality start to degrade. And we started seeing our nitrate levels climb. We started seeing our TDS levels climb. And that just didn't seem right. And then I was working on a community project within our little small area. And I started hearing from different neighbors that they were getting positive tests for E. coli. And they were getting nitrate issues when they sold their house or recently had bought their house. And this kind of started setting off some red flags as to, okay, why is our water quality getting worse, dramatically worse? Go ahead and go to the next slide. And what I started to do is I went back and I looked at some early water tests that we had, and I realized that our nitrate had, at least for our well, had doubled in the last 10 years. And our chloride had gone up, and our sulfates had gone up, and our TDS, which is total dissolved solids, had really skyrocketed. So again, I started asking more neighbors and trying to figure out, what was going on. And I asked the municipal water department, and the answer I typically got was, well, it was the chicken ranches that were here 20 years ago, or it was the farming that was here. And we've lived here a long time. There hasn't been a chicken ranch around in 20 years, and there's none anywhere near us. So that led me on kind of an investigation as to what's going on. Why is our water quality getting so bad? And go ahead and go to the next slide. So my first instinct was to, okay, well, we'll start filtering our water, because we can get nitrate out of the water with an RO system, reverse osmosis. So this is kind of where the citizen water part came in. This was our water. This is our water system attempting to filter the nitrates out of our water. And it got to the point where I could no longer filter them. We were trying different RO systems. We were trying every filter. I had professionals come out and look at the water. I talked to manufacturers that were making RO systems, and we just couldn't get the nitrate out. And long story short on that, what we discovered is that our high TDS levels, they stopped working. So again, that sent me back to what is really going on around here. So after a lot of hard work, go ahead and go to the next slide. These are some of the RO, different brands of RO filters we tried to get the nitrate out of our water, and they just didn't work. After a lot of investigation, I discovered that there is a fair number of septic systems in our area that were failing. And we had a lot of damage to the sewer system that is serving our community. And all of the chemicals that we were seeing increasing in our water all pointed to some sort of a wastewater issue. So that's kind of where I really got the water board involved and said, okay, I think we have a problem here where our water is getting contaminated by sewer or septic, or a combination of both. And that's kind of what led me on this quest. So go to the next slide. So this is one of the things we kind of started to notice. Everybody with hard water will start to realize that you'll get calcium deposits or hard water deposits on your fixtures. But again, we started to notice that these things were happening more rapidly. We were going through hose bibs within a year or two. And again, that just didn't seem right. So another slide. First time I ever got to show a picture of one of our toilet bowls. I never thought I would do that. But this is, we were noticing we're getting blue streaks in our water, and we had our water lab tested, and the blue typically comes from copper. And we had very little copper in our groundwater. So long story short, what we discovered is it was the high TDS in our water that was actually starting to eat our copper pipes. So next slide. There we go. So this is kind of some of the things we started to notice. Again, being here for 32 years, you start noticing changes in your pipes and your fixtures. And these are two issues that happen with our copper pipes within the last 12 months, and probably 18 months, where the water is actually eating through our copper pipes in the house. So the bad water quality isn't just a health issue, it's actually it's a property damage issue. I'm terrified that one of these is going to break in a wall here soon, and we're going to be dealing with much more than just unsafe water. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So how do you deal with this situation? So my first instinct was to go to the municipal water and try to get help. And unfortunately, so the municipal water supplier that we have here in Ramona, the connection fee alone just to connect to city water, if the water main was in front of your house, was about $25,000 connection and another $4,000 to $5,000 for the incidentals. And that's if the pipe was in front of your house. So you're looking at a $30,000 connection just to connect to city water if it was available. In our case, the water main was about 600 feet away. We had gotten estimates as high as $70,000 to get water to our house. By this point, I had gotten the water board involved, and they had come out and tested our water. And we tested 10 wells, and 9 of them came back unsafe. The nitrate levels were in some cases 4 times the safe limits. And we also discovered that we had a uranium issue, which was an extra bonus that we didn't realize. A lot of my neighbors can't afford that expense, and a lot of people really didn't even realize that they had bad water. And that's kind of where I said, well, you know, this is kind of one of those things where I need to really do this for the community. And that's where I really got started, was how do I help my community who can't afford to connect to city water, even if it was close to them, and bring attention to this problem here in Ramona. As I was kind of doing the water filtration, what I realized was, A, a lot of people didn't realize their water was unsafe, and B, when houses were being sold in the area and they would come back with high nitrate, the typical solution was, we'll just put in an RO system. And people were putting in RO systems, and they're not realizing that that they're not working. They're not going back and retesting the water. They're just doing this at test, and they're drinking the water without realizing that it's bad. So I got involved with the municipal water. I got involved with the water district, and we started to climb this mountain. And I've been working on this project. This is my 3rd year now, and we wouldn't have made it as far as we are without the help of the water board. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So the water board came in and really started to help. Like I already mentioned, we tested 10 wells, and 9 of them came back unsafe. And we kind of started the process. Some of the other challenges that I've dealt with in this is a lot of people not only didn't realize that they had unsafe water, but they were resistant to even getting the state or the water, the municipal water involved. People are afraid that their wells are going to get metered, they're going to lose their wells. People are afraid that their house is going to get condemned because they don't have safe water, their property values are going down. So it took a lot of work to get the community to trust me and trust the water board to move this forward. So one more slide. So where we're at today. So we identified 50 homes where we thought this problem was kind of centralized. We did the well testing, 9 out of 10 became unsafe. So we've been assigned a project manager now who's kind of leading us through the process. We've done some basic community outreach through the contractor that's helping us with that. And right now we're applying for, actually, I think we've been approved for the funding for the design of a new water system throughout our area. And the contractors are being interviewed right now for to get the contract to do that. After that, we move into construction funding, and hopefully we'll get some new pipelines and we'll get everybody clean water. And then I hope that this doesn't stop with the first 50 homes that we've identified. I've uncovered documents and information that there are other areas within Ramona that this seems to be a problem all over. And I'm hoping we can move this to a phase 2 and show that this is a bigger problem and get people the water that they need. So I think that is about it on my presentation. The last thing I'll say before we move to questions is, especially for people that are community members that are trying to do this on their own, if there's something that I can do to help you through that process, I'd be more than willing to do that. The best advice that I can give people is you've got to be persistent in this. You've got to be able to come forward with a lot of the information about the wells in your area, come forward with a solution. In our case, the solution was the water is nearby. It's just too expensive for people to get. So if you can kind of pull together a package as to, hey, this is kind of where we can move forward, this is how we can move forward, I think that will help the process a little bit. So if you want my contact information, just go through somebody in the water board. I've already told Elizabeth and Itzel to feel free to give my information out if somebody reaches out to them. So with that, I will go to questions.
Mike, thank you. You did not disappoint.
Thank you.
We really appreciate that. And if you, oh, there you go. There's the contact information. Are there any reflections on the speaker's presentation, on Mike's presentation, or any questions that you would have for him?
I see a question in the, is it correct that Ramona Municipal meets all standards? That's probably a question for you guys. I'm not talking about Ramona water. I'm talking about this problem is a problem with our well water.
Thank you for that clarification. So what was the biggest challenge you faced in securing safe drinking water, which you're still in the process of, I understand, with your community? Like working with your community, what was the biggest challenge and how did you overcome it?
I'd say probably the biggest challenge is the SAFER and the water board typically works with the municipal systems. They don't, from my perspective, working with citizens and people that are on wells that have bad water, most of the grant funding and most of the work is through the water, municipal water systems, which is what we'd like to connect to. And the biggest challenge has been getting the municipal system to get interested or want to help. Today, I think we're on the right track, but that's still a challenge today, is keeping the municipal system, who has to, the money goes through them, involved. That surprised me that is such a problem.
I appreciate that. And I remember in talking with you previously, you were talking about even just getting your community members to come together to kind of trust one another. Was there kind of a challenge there too?
Yeah, there's a lot of people are low income and they can't really, I think they're concerned they're going to be forced to either connect to sewer or they're going to be forced to connect to a well. And that's not the case. Everything here would be voluntary. I think people are probably, if they're aware their water is not safe, they're probably spending more on bottled water than they would on city water for their house. I think a lot of people are afraid they're going to lose their well. Water in our area really isn't a problem. There's a stream bed that's a quarter mile away from here. So we have plenty of groundwater. It's just contaminated. So that has been that's been a challenge to make people realize. And I think that probably comes from the Central Valley where wells are getting metered because they have a problem with not enough water. So people extrapolate that into thinking, oh, they're going to put meters on our wells and say, I can't use my well. And that's not what's going on here. It's more about getting people clean water than it is restricting them from using their water.
Yeah, I could see how that would be a hurdle, that anxiety or fear about the unknown, what could happen versus what they already know. I appreciate that. So to the audience, do you have any other questions for Mike or things that resonated with you that felt familiar with things from his story and his situation, things he's dealing with?
The chat, Elizabeth, we have a message from Teresa Herrera, who came to this meeting because someone posted that this meeting would have discussions on sewer and paving roads. And those topics are not a part of today's meeting, Teresa. We're here talking about the Safer Drinking Water Program. But we're glad you're here.
I know another Herrera in the house. It's good. Well, if we don't have any other questions for Mike, we can move on. I just really appreciate you being here, Mike, and sharing your stories and your struggles and some victories. You're on the path. And
I'm really excited for that day when people get to have fresh water or clean water, if that's what they want. I think that'll be a huge goal for the huge accomplishment for the neighborhood, and I hope we can continue to expand the problem. It's surprising to me how many people have unsafe water and they're not aware of it. And the other thing, one thing I didn't mention in my talk that I probably should have is the problem where the copper is eating off the pipes. That was the problem they had in Flint, Michigan. It wasn't the quality of water, it was the lead coming off of their pipes that was poisoning them. It wasn't, so when they went to their municipal water and said, there's something wrong, this doesn't seem right, the water in the area said, well, it meets all the standards, but it was that eating of the pipes that was poisoning them. And seeing that same issue here, that kind of hit home a little bit. I felt for those people.
Well, I appreciate the perseverance you've shown and that there can be a change. And it's slow to happening, but there can be a change.
Agreed.
So, and if folks come up with questions, I think Mike's willing to stay on for a few more minutes. Just post them in the chat and we'll have some time at the end to address those. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you guys for everything.
Well, now we just have a few closing comments. So I'll hand the mic back to Itzel.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And thank you, Mike, again for sharing your story and for being so willing and open to join us today. And I hope if anyone on the line has any questions, feel free to post them in the chat or follow up with us so we can connect you with Mike. So thanks for that. Okay, I'm now going to wrap us up because I know it's late. It's getting dark. It's time for sleep. So we're going to wrap up here with just some next steps and a couple of closing PolyV questions. So I know we threw a lot of information at you today, but I want to highlight just a couple of key next steps for you all. So if you're interested in coming to more future safer events, like maybe you want to comment on the fund expenditure plan, or maybe you want to learn more about the advisory group and you want to watch one of their meetings, I encourage you all to check out our SAFER website. That link has been posted in the chat, but we can post it again. So for any future events, please feel free to check out that link and be sure to join us. Most of those meetings are in English and Spanish as part of the SAFER program. So just wanted to note that. Okay, and if you have any questions or comments or suggestions, or if you want more information about any topic that we've talked about today, please feel free to connect with us. You can email safer@waterboards.ca.gov, or you can call and leave a voicemail at 916-445-5615. We have staff monitoring both of those accounts, and we'll be sure to get back to you. Another next step for you all, I mentioned this earlier, but if you can comment on the fund expenditure plan, either in writing or by showing up to the fund expenditure plan workshop in August, you can do that as well. So please, we encourage you to comment or peruse the fund expenditure plan as that's coming up. Another next step for you all, if you're interested or if you know people in your community or in your organizations that you think would be a great fit for the SAFER advisory group, please encourage them to apply. The application opens on July 6th. So please check out our website, encourage folks to apply. And the last next step that I want to leave for y'all is about applying for jobs. So if you're interested in some of the work that we talked about today and you'd like to join our team, we're hiring. So you can check us out at jobs.ca.gov. We need more passionate folks here, like I'm sure some of you all are. So those are the next steps. And with that, I'll pass the mic back to Elizabeth to end us with some PolyV questions to close us out today.
All right, before we close things out, and I'm reminding you that we will stay online to answer some of these other questions that have come up. And we are going to do a PolyV, but before we do that final PolyV, Michelle Frederick had one additional comment. Oh, you made it in the chat. Did you want to verbally say anything there, Michelle?
I did. I just wanted to let people know, I looked into Bruce's question. His water system is not out of compliance up in Marysville. But it is, what happens is if there is on the map, if you have a single water system in your zip code that is out of compliance, then it looks like the whole area is out of compliance. So just be aware of that, and you have to actually kind of toggle through to see at the bottom. So anyhow, but if you have any questions, we're happy to help. So
thank you, Michelle. That's an important clarification. So we're going to do a couple, just 2 questions on PolyV. So pull up your phone again or your web browser. And these are going to be quick questions. I want to know, do you plan on coming back to any future SAFER events? So A is for yes, and that's the only answer you really need. Okay, B is for maybe, and C is for no. Again, thanks, Giselle. For the SAFER polls, it's at polyv.com/SAFER 2019. Okay, so far we have 100% attendance at all future events. We expect to see you guys there. All right, one last poll question for you guys, and then we'll stick around for any of those questions that weren't answered. Have you learned something new about the program today? And then again, the letters represent different things. Yes, I learned many new things. Yes, I learned a few new things. That's a B. C, no, I did not learn anything new today. And D, I'm not sure. If you're not sure, stay on. We'll talk about it some more. All right, so we've learned, I always feel like if you can take away one nugget of new information with you, a meeting is a success. So we'll give that another couple seconds to see if people are going to respond. Well, that was our last PolyV. You guys are pros at this point. I just really want to say thank you for participating today. We will stay on. This water board staff will stay on for a few minutes. If you guys want to ask some questions, you can unmute. We can have some discussion. But thank you for coming, and don't miss out on the future water board or SAFER summer series events. The next one's Thursday if you're interested. There's more information and where you can find it on the screen. Itzel, did you have anything to add?
No, I think you summed it up perfectly. Thanks everyone for coming. Feel free to stick around if you have further questions.
Thank you. So I know there were some questions in the chat from folks. Did those get answered satisfactorily?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hi, good evening. This is Jose.
Hi.
So, and you know, maybe I figured you guys would know, but my questions were kind of about Calum Screen. So, you know, the 3.0 version, you can pull up your drinking water and it gives you a breakdown of arsenic, hexchrome, and other contaminants. That's what I've been using. And during this meeting, I did try some of the links that were shared. And maybe it's just because I'm a little bit more familiar with Calum Screen that it seemed easier to navigate for me. And so I'm just curious if you guys know if the 4.0 version will have that level of granularity and if that's like a good source that I should be using.
I would say that's a great question, and one that I don't have an immediate answer to. Does any of the other water board staffs, can they respond to that?
I can try. Hi, Jose.
Hi.
For Cal EnviroScreen, so that is run by the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment. So I am not particularly sure what their draft or what their 4.0 version will look like. I do know that they are releasing that 4.0 draft for public comment, let's see, soon, if not already. And that would be a great question to add in there. But we can also follow up via email if you'd like us to connect you to some folks who've been working on Cal EnviroScreen and could answer your question.
Okay, that would be great. And in the meantime, is 3.0 like, so I would add that I've reached out to some people in El Monte and I'm kind of helping them. This is a group of guys who've been through the juvenile justice system, and they're grown up now. They're trying to make amends. They're trying to learn what's wrong in the neighborhood, and so I figured I would bring my knowledge of environmental justice to that conversation. And because they were from El Monte, I kind of walked them through what I learned in Cal EnviroScreen, and they had a 97 percentile for groundwater threat, and a pretty high percentile for drinking water. And so I also want to help them learn how to advocate. And so now that we've looked at Cal EnviroScreen, I'm gonna show them how to submit comment letters. And so part of that will probably be submitting a comment letter on the expenditure plan. But maybe this isn't the question for here. I'm wondering if where the pressure points would be. I mean, should we also be writing letters to their city council to push for stronger infrastructure? I could probably run circles around folks when it comes to other types of pollutants, but water is new to me, and and I'm engaged because, again, as I shared in the chat, per Cal EnviroScreen 3.0, the hex chrome in my community was 95. So that's what brings me to this conversation.
Hey, Jose, this is Amanda Ford. I work for the water boards with the Safer unit. And I know you reached out last week too, so we appreciate that. If we can get you in touch with some groups that can help you strategize for advocacy, even help you with the outreach that you're doing to the group of young men that you were talking about. We can do stuff within the agency too, but there's a lot of folks in around Sacramento that are doing similar work that you might want to connect with, and we can help you get in connection with them. I have your email. Is it okay if I follow up with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, because I think that's like a big question, and we have a lot that we could help get you connected with to help you achieve that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll email you tomorrow.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'd add that I have a lot of really strong EJ connections across the state, and so if you guys maybe needed help reaching a certain community, and I can help you, I would be happy to. It would be for them.
Can I ask a question just real briefly? Jose, what public water system is it that you're on?
Our bill is from American, and I live in Parkway, South Sacramento. So when I looked up Cal EnviroScreen, even though the granularity wasn't there, it was the worst one in Sacramento. And in 3.0, us and Bowling Green were, the dark purple. And I think Lemon Hill, and actually, because I am familiar with other EJ efforts in Sacramento, that map that had the worst drinking water quality also happens to be the area that's most neglected by AB 617 and air quality efforts. So it's being missed on a lot of levels per Cal EnviroScreen, and just what I see in other types of advocacy going on. So the folks from Sacramento might know me and not like me because I'm really picky about who I work with.
Well, yeah, because 95 for hexavalent chromium is really high. I'm surprised I haven't heard of it. So, you know, there was a question in the chat, and I don't know if it was from you, about where we are on doing hexavalent chromium. They recently put out some various studies on cost estimates. For those of you that don't know, hexavalent chromium, we set an MCL for it, and then we were sued, and we're about to set another one. You know, they recently did sort of analysis of the number of water systems at different MCLs. So sort of part of what was required in that lawsuit to evaluate costs and things like that. Because when we set an MCL, there's a cost element to that. The public health goal is the lowest that you could get, and then the MCL is what can sort of be achieved, either because the labs can't measure, or you know, for a variety, or because it's so expensive. So they are in the process of doing that now. I'm hoping to see one come out, hopefully at least continue through, and I hate to say a time, because things are always longer than I'd hoped, but you know, definitely a draft one, hopefully in the next year or so.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I really wasn't surprised because before I worked in government, I worked at a powder coater, and they had open chrome baths there, and they were pretty shady. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were just dumping it down the little creek behind by Highway 99. And so there's not one there now, but there was a chrome plater there that was shut down. So you know, I'm not surprised by it.
Okay, well, I'll definitely look into it too.
I can send you the link to the Calvin Viral screen with the census tract that has that. And
sure, that'd be great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jose, you can just send that to the safer@waterboards.ca.gov, and we'll make sure Michelle gets it. And I know Amanda's going to follow up with you. Sounds like you guys have good connections there.
Thank you.
We're glad you're here.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate your questions. Is there anybody else that would have a question for waterboard staff?
I believe Ryan Hirano, he's no longer on the phone, but he was here, and he had a question in the chat, but it looks like he's since hopped off. So never mind.
Anybody else? Questions, concerns, reflections from today's presentation? I know it was a lot of information. Well, if there are no other questions, I'm going to remind you that we are available to you. Email us or call us. I think those numbers are in the chat probably a couple times, but we will respond. And if we don't know the answers, we'll find someone that does, and we will get back to you. But we really appreciate you guys taking an evening to hang out with us, to learn a little more about the SAFER program. Thanks, Jessica. There's all your information in living color. And we appreciate your time and want to wish you a good evening. Thank you.
Buenas noches.
Yeah, buenas noches. Good night.